Well, the folks that crunched the numbers around Indiana's spending and savings released a final report on how the state did in fiscal year 2025, and that covers the time frame of last July to this July.
Our State House reporter Emily Longnecker is here with what that report found. And Emily, you've gone through the numbers today. What's your assessment of how the state of Indiana is doing financially?
Well, according to the numbers from the state budget agency, Indiana was able to end fiscal year 2025 with a balanced budget, $2.5 billion in surplus, and the state was able to collect more in revenue than was first forecasted in April. But there is still uncertainty around spending over the next 2 years because of the recent funding bill passed in Washington. 3 months after a bleak revenue forecast in April, the sun was shining again for the folks delivering a report Tuesday on the final numbers for fiscal year 2025.
Hoosiers can remain confident that our financial footing is stable.
State budget officials touted closing the fiscal year out with a surplus and $170 million more in revenue than was projected in April. A lot of that money, though, $160 million of it, came from a shift in small businesses paying taxes last month rather than waiting until this December. The state also credited big events this past spring for some of that revenue.
Pacers, racers, we saw an uptick in our sales tax, always a good thing.
The impact of cuts to federal funding recently passed by Congress and signed into law by President Trump still in question.
So I would say at the moment there's quite a bit of uncertainty.
Later in the afternoon, Governor Braun said he wasn't concerned about the state navigating cuts to federal funding for SNAP and Medicaid.
If we're enterprising ourselves, we'll find ways, even if it puts more burden on us, to do it better and more efficiently.
Democrats at the State House didn't question what was in the fiscal year-end report, but how Indiana got there, citing cuts to programs like On My Way Pre-K, even as lawmakers voted to expand school vouchers.
The question that I raise is at what expense?
Democrats called on the state to release their findings about the impact of federal funding cuts as soon as possible.
They're promising that we'll see it in the December forecast. I'm saying we can't wait for that.
We need to have it by September.
Yeah, we need to be preparing legislation to deal with these issues.
Right. Republican State Representative Jeff Thompson, who is the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, said Republicans are cautiously optimistic about the state's economic growth after today's report, saying it shows a better budget outlook than what was forecasted in April. Meantime, Democrats saying today's report still comes with a lot of uncertainty from not yet knowing the impact of those federal cuts in Washington. At the Indiana State House, Emily Longnecker, 13 News.